Hello, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. England 25, New Zealand 25, a draw at Twickenham. Unbelievable game. New Zealand dominant for 70 minutes. England with 3 late tries to drag themselves back in the game. They get themselves level and then they kick the ball out. They don't even try and go for the victory. So much to get into. I'm going to try and do my best to round up the action in this video. If you are new here, please subscribe to the channel, like the video and drop a comment down below. What did you make of this game? And also, for which team is this result better for? England 25, New Zealand 25. So much to get into. Let's get into it. So this match was a step up in quality for England compared with facing Argentina and Japan. It was more of a marker of where they were at this moment in time. And through 70 minutes, they came up incredibly short. Overall, it was a disappointing performance. But that comeback perhaps puts a gloss on it. If you're being really kind, we can applaud the players for the way in which they came into the game. Not many teams come back against New Zealand in that fashion. So it speaks volumes about the belief in the squad, I guess you could say. But we can't ignore the fact that for 70 minutes, England was second best. New Zealand were winning the physical side of the game. They looked tactically smarter and England looked completely lost at sea. From a New Zealand perspective, where do they go from here? Overall, it's been a positive end to their season on what has been a pretty tough season for them by their own incredibly high standards. But after the disappointment of losing their series at home to Ireland, the disappointment of losing at home in the Rugby Championship to Argentina, they still won the Rugby Championship. And then they've come overseas. They've had a pretty good autumn tour. What is it? They're unbeaten for 6 or 7 games to end the year. But this is surely going to be disappointing. They'd have wanted to get revenge for the World Cup semi-final in 2019. Okay, it's not the end of the world that they haven't necessarily got revenge for that. But given the manner of the game, given how dominant they were, it's uncharacteristic for an All Blacks side to concede so many late points. So what do their fans think about this result? There's so much to try and get into. I'll start off with the first half where New Zealand, as they've done so much this autumn, just came out the blocks absolutely flying, didn't they? We saw them do it at the Principality against Wales. We saw them do it against Scotland, where they come out so quickly, score a couple of tries, and just have so much momentum. I mean, that's a great sign for them. As a team that are able to start well, that's absolutely brilliant. We'll get on to what happened at the end of the game in a bit more detail shortly. So I think there's positive signs there for the All Blacks, but they perhaps still shouldn't be in the position where they ultimately let that game slip away from them. They had the Papali'i intercept on Jack Van Poortvliet, who didn't have his best game. He's still a young guy. Any of you who've seen videos on this channel before about me talking about him, I'm a big fan of his. I was pleased to see him start. Ultimately, you learn some pretty tough lessons at international level. I wouldn't be too harsh on him, even though I'm sure he'll be a bit disappointed with how his evening went, really, the intercept, but also there were other times where he was hassled and harried at the breakdown. I know Ardie Savea clattered him in the first half, although to be fair to Van Poortvliet, I think Savea was probably offside on that occasion. But anyway, that's kind of by the by. A tough afternoon, a tough evening for Jack Van Poortvliet. And Ben Youngs came on, who I've been very critical of. I'm still not sure about his long-term future, but he did make a difference for England. He did make an impact off the bench, so credit to him for doing that. Outside of that, what else can we get into in terms of that first half? It was just a pretty one-sided affair, I thought. England got themselves into the 22 and then they conceded penalties. There was a lack of accuracy in terms of giving the ball away. New Zealand able to turn it over at the last minute, and you just felt like it was going to be a real frustrating night for England, which for the most part it was until the final 10 minutes. And also tactically from New Zealand, I think very, very smart. They exploited those wide channels. The crossfield kicks on a consistent basis caused England some issues. The Rieko Ioane try in the second half, start of the second half, coming directly from one of those to Caleb Clark. Lovely little switch, and Ioane was down that left wing. So I thought New Zealand played a smart game. I thought they looked physical. The physicality, I thought overall was better than England. England actually did bring it in some degree, but New Zealand were better in that part of the field. And they got themselves in a really commanding position. They led by 17 points to 3 at half time. And then what happened? England were able to drag themselves back into the game. I think overall this is a result that is better for England because they were pretty poor and they've somehow got a draw out of it. New Zealand will feel that they should have won this match. But I still feel at the end of the game, England, you've just got yourselves back to 25 all. Yes, it's not a knockout competition. You're not playing for silverware. And Marcus Smith decides to kick the ball out with the clock in the red on the restart after the final try, which was converted to draw the game level. I don't know, it just seems a little bit negative to me. I guess on the one hand, you take the draw and you don't want to give away a penalty or give New Zealand a chance to have a shot at goal to win it late on. So I can understand that, but overall, I think I would have rather seen England try and make a fist of it, try and go for it, use the momentum that they had in that final 10 minutes and see if they could have snuck what would have been an unbelievably famous win. I wonder whether it also speaks a little bit to the mindset of the England players at the moment, of knowing that there's a lot of negativity around the team and the results of the team, and therefore being quite happy to settle for the draw rather than risking that and trying to get the victory in the process and maybe ending up losing the game. I don't know. I know there's also going to be a lot more focus as well on Marcus Smith. In the final 10 minutes, he ran the game a lot better. I don't know exactly why that would have been, but people without doubt will be calling for Marcus Smith to be handed the reins of this England attack. I don't think it's necessarily as simple as that. I don't think they're sat there saying, no, we're not giving Marcus Smith any ability to run the attack. I still think it's a bedding in process for the young Harlequins fly half. He's not that experienced at international level. He hasn't played that much with Owen Farrell at inside centre or Manu Tuolangi at outside centre. So I do still think it's a combination for me anyway that I would give a little bit more time. But there's no doubt that if we can see him do what he did in the last 10 minutes on a more regular basis, England are going to be a serious threat when it comes to the World Cup. And I guess the World Cup is what they're still focusing on, right? Eddie Jones always says, you almost get the impression with Eddie Jones that he's not too worried overall about the results in these games. It's more about what England do at the World Cup, which is putting all your eggs in one basket, is on a poker table, all in. It's a really, really risky play. And, that could easily come unstuck at the World Cup. We don't have the evidence at this moment in time to know whether England will turn up at the World Cup. They've been way short of that level in recent games. I think the Six Nations is going to be huge for them in terms of having to kick on if they are going to be genuine contenders at the World Cup. As for New Zealand, speaking of the World Cup, they are contenders for me. They're below France and Ireland at the moment because they're inconsistent, which I've said before on the channel. We've seen that in spades on this autumn tour. But when they click, when they get it right, they have been brutal. And no one they've played has been able to live with them. Now, admittedly, they've got Ireland and France to come who will be better than Wales, Scotland and England, or certainly at this moment in time they are. But they can be so efficient in the red zone. They can be ruthless in attack. They can be incredibly physical, as we saw against England. And they have those tactical parts to their game, the crossfield kick, for example, today, where they can try and hurt teams in different ways. Joe Schmidt has come in and had a real impact in that coaching staff. I think with another season under his belt, more time with those players and as part of that coaching team in a more serious role, I think will continue to have an impact. So I'd imagine that New Zealand fans watching this are going to be disappointed, but I would argue that there are enough green shoots for New Zealand that actually they've come through a really tough year to be able to put themselves in a position where I would back them at the World Cup against anyone still. They're not as ruthless, they're not as dangerous as they once were, but they're still serious operators. They can hurt any team in the world, and I would expect them to be able to build upon this season and get better because of it, even though this result ultimately is going to leave them pretty frustrated overall. I think it's a better result for England because they drew. New Zealand would be disappointed, but in terms of the overall picture of things, New Zealand are in a better place at the moment. Let me know what you think in the comments down below about this game. What an unbelievable test match. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and like the video, give it a thumbs up. That always makes a really big impact. Can't wait to hear from you, and I'll see you in the next one.